Hey, what is up? Hope everybody's doing well. I am back for another collection update kind of thing. I decided to split this one up into two parts so it's not a freaking hour long like it was last time because I have a huge stack of stuff. So if you haven't seen it, I just did my kind of metal and hard rock one. And then this is kind of the rest of the stuff I've picked up. Some of this could be borderline hard rock, I guess, but I don't know. I wanted to split it up sort of evenly. I might actually have less in this one, but yeah. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. Um, like I mentioned in the other one as well, I've basically just been picking up CDs, just way cheaper to buy and ship and easier to store, um, as well as I don't know if you buy an old record, you kind of don't know what you're getting as far as sound quality goes. Even if it's a nice pressing, sometimes it just doesn't sound that great. Um, I don't have a record cleaner or anything. I've also heard mixed opinions on whether you should do that or not. I don't know. But if you pick up an old CD, unless it's scratched to shit, it generally sounds pretty good if it's a um, good version. So anyway, let's get into this. First up, Angelo Badalamenti, Twin Peaks soundtrack. Man, Twin Peaks is my one of my favorite TV shows of all time. So weird. Um, I don't know what half of it means, but I love it anyway. Um, and the soundtrack is great. There's a lot of different stuff on here. A lot of it is kind of dark jazz almost. Um, but I don't know, just a really evocative album and a great listen on its own, even apart from the show. So yeah, glad to pick that up. It was like $2, so I had to. All right, going back to the '70s, Camel, Moon Madness. Love this band. Their first few albums, especially first five or so. Fantastic prog rock. Uh, this is just a total masterpiece, in my opinion. This album. You got so many great songs on here. Song within a song. Another Night, especially maybe my favorite. Lunar Sea. This one has some live stuff on it too. This reissue of it. Yeah, just fantastic '70s prog rock. If you're into '70s prog and you haven't heard Camel, get with the program. Any of the first four albums, check them out. Okay, Carole King, Tapestry. An album I've heard of plenty of times, but I had never listened to it, to be honest. When I did put it on finally, again, this was one that was like $1 or two from Discogs from a seller that I was already buying stuff from and no extra shipping, so figured I might as well. Yeah, I've heard a lot of these songs before. Just classic kind of ballads, piano ballads and stuff. I guess it's pop rock, sort of a little bit of folk, a little bit of country. Just good stuff. Yeah, I don't know. If you're in a mellow kind of mood, it's a great album to throw on. Okay, next up, The Cure. Big shout out to Jeff over at Gas Masks and Hand Grenades for getting me into The Cure with his deep dive on them a year and a half ago or so. I had never really listened to them before that, and after that, I decided to just jump into their albums. And man, fantastic band. This is Wish from when did this come out? '92, I think. Maybe not quite on par with Disintegration right before it, but I mean, what is? That's just a perfect album, basically, and this is really good too. Um, Hard band to describe, sort of gothic, kind of post-punk, a lot of just pop. Um, yeah, I don't know, just fantastic album. Yeah, worth checking out for sure. Okay, now an artist that I have never listened to, Dead Can Dance. Got Into the Labyrinth and Spirit Chaser. Forget when these came out. I want to say early 90s. Another band that I watched a deep dive of on Jeff's channel, and I've heard other people talk about them too. And I still don't really have any idea, even after watching a multiple hour video about them. I don't really know what they sound like, but I am definitely intrigued enough that I had to pick these up. One of these days, I'm going to get around to listening to some of their albums. I still haven't yet. It's kind of one of those artists where the way people talk about them makes me want to listen to them when I'm not distracted by something else. I want to be in it, which is easier said than done. Just, I don't know. A lot of the time when I end up listening to music, I'm also doing something else, and I'm not giving it my full attention. And I feel like this is probably music that really deserves your full attention. So, sometime in the near future, I'm gonna just sit down and immerse myself. Right, sticking in the 80s, kind of 80s, 90s gothic sort of stuff. Depeche Mode, Violator. I haven't listened to a ton of Depeche Mode, but I really like what I have heard. I do know this album a little bit. Great, just like, it's not quite synth pop. I guess it sort of is, but it's sort of gothic as well. Hard band to describe. I do like this album quite a bit. I've only heard it a couple times, and I did really like their album from last year as well. Forget what that one was called. Yeah, I need another band I need to investigate more one of these days, but I was glad to get this. Again, it was $3 or something, so had to buy it. And then kind of a big stack here from The Doors. I mean, what do you say about The Doors, Jim Morrison and company? Fantastic band, hugely influential on psychedelic rock and blues rock and hard rock bands from the 60s onward. We got Strange Days, Waiting for the Sun, Morrison Hotel, and LA Woman. Just great albums. I don't know, blues rock, psychedelic rock, almost proto-prog in spots too. Really cool stuff. Again, what do you say about The Doors that hasn't already been said? I don't think I really need to talk about them too much. Another band that probably needs no introduction, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Trilogy. First album I own of theirs. Weird album cover, right? Hypnosis, I think, did this. It's like they're all connected, strangely. But yeah, ELP was one prog band that took me a while to get into, even after I was into prog rock. I don't know, they go a little too far in in places for me. But I have mostly come around to their stuff. I feel like the first album might actually be my favorite still, or maybe Brain Salad Surgery. But this is still great. All their first four albums are awesome. Um, I mean, this is worth getting even just for From the Beginning. What an amazing song. Yeah, just legendary prog rock band, and glad to have that. Okay, sticking with prog-ish stuff, the next few are still going to be in that realm. Frank Zappa, The Mothers of Invention, Freak Out, their debut album, 1967. Double album, I think one of the first double albums ever. Interesting album, not one of my absolute favorites. A lot of weird stuff on it. But hugely influential and groundbreaking for the time. You can already see Frank's sense of humor coming out in this. And then got Chic Your Booty. I hadn't heard this one before picking this up. I have played it. Yeah, great album. It's pretty long. It's a double album. But some great stuff on here. I mean, Baby Snakes. No, wait, my bad. City of Tiny Lights is what I was thinking of. It's probably my favorite song on here, but I don't know. If you like Frank Zappa, this is one you need to hear. Need to hear. Excuse me. I love Zappa. Maybe one day I'll end up listening to all of his studio albums. Maybe. I don't know. There's so much out there, and all the live stuff too, just insanely huge catalog. Daunting, but great stuff overall. One interesting thing about these too, I don't know if you can see it on camera there, but they're in green jewel cases, which is kind of interesting. Haven't seen that before. Okay, sticking on the kind of prog stuff. Genesis, Trick of the Tail. 76, I want to say this came out. First album without Peter Gabriel, Phil Collins taking over on vocals, and they did not miss a beat. This is fantastic. If you like the early Genesis stuff at all, or you like 70s prog, this is mandatory. I mean, Dance on a Volcano, Entangled, Madman Moon, Ripples, Los Endos. Oh, man. Fantastic album. They would do one more after this with Steve Hackett before he would leave. That's kind of, I don't know. That's my favorite period of the band is when Steve Hackett was in. Such an amazing guitar player. Yeah, love this album. Fantastic. And one more prog one, Gentle Giant. Acquiring the Taste. Interesting album cover. There's the full thing. It's a peach. I don't know what you were thinking, but anyway, yeah. I used to have this on vinyl back in the day, but I guess I sold it. This might be my favorite Gentle Giant album. Another band that took me a long time to get into, even though I was already into prog. They're extremely dense and complex, but super interesting, super unique. No one sounds like them really. This might be my favorite album of theirs, and this is the one that kind of got me into the band because it's a little bit less intense. There's a little bit more space, breathing room on this compared to some of their other ones, especially the mid to later 70s stuff. But man, this is just a fantastic album. Love every song on here, basically. If you like 70s prog, again, check that out. Great band. Okay. So, back to Jeff. He's a bad influence because I've bought a bunch of box sets recently. Not a bunch, not on his level, but I'll you know what? I'm just gonna actually leave the box sets for last. So disregard that for a minute. Massive Attack, Blue Lines. Again, this was another one that I got on Discogs. I was already getting something from the seller, and this was like $2 or something, no extra shipping. And I mean, I've heard a few Massive Attack songs. I've heard lots of good stuff about them. Legendary trip hop band from the 90s. This is a great album. Yeah, I put it on a little while ago after I got it, and yeah, really solid stuff. Definitely gonna have to check out some more of these guys' albums as well. Okay, something a little different here. Some classical stuff. I haven't listened to this, but it's got Mussorgsky Pictures at an Exhibition and Stravinsky The Firebird on the same CD. I love Pictures at an Exhibition. I grew up on a lot of classical music. My parents are really into that. They both play French horn. So yeah, I grew up with Pictures in the Exhibition. Fantastic piece of music. Whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure what it is. It's not a symphony. It's not a concerto. I don't know what it is exactly. I think it was originally written for piano, but this is an orchestrated version. And it's kind of famous in the rock and metal world for being covered by Emerson, Lake and Palmer, as well as German tech thrash band Mekong Delta. And I do like both of those versions, but I still prefer the orchestral version, personally. Yeah, classical music is one of those things that I still really enjoy. I don't listen to it a whole lot now, but I think I'll probably get back into it heavily at some point in my life. Yeah, again, this was like super cheap at a thrift store, and it was still in the shrink wrap. And then Stravinsky as well. I'm not too familiar with the Firebird Suite, but Rite of Spring is probably my favorite piece of classical music. So glad to have that. Hopefully it's a good recording. I don't really know. Okay, Peter Gabriel, talking about Genesis a few minutes ago, and this is his 5th studio album from 1984, I think. So, the big song on here was Sledgehammer. Huge hit with that song. Man, I love Peter Gabriel's solo stuff, his early stuff anyway. I haven't heard all of his albums, but the first 5 are fantastic. This is basically just 80s pop, art pop maybe, if you want to call it that. Because there's still some pretty interesting stuff going on here. It's not just straight up pop, but the song structures and overall kind of feeling are basically pop. But man, just great songs. Yeah, any of his first 5 albums are great. The first couple are more rock based. Then he started going off and doing more experimental kind of electronic stuff and whatnot. But yeah, really cool stuff. Speaking of 80s, The Police, Synchronicity. Again, 80s pop rock, new wave-ish, sort of. I don't know. It's hard to categorize these guys. I mean, you don't really need to. It's they're The Police. They sound like The Police. This is a great album. Their last one. I don't think I've actually heard any of their other ones, but I really like this one, especially Synchronicity 2. That's just such an amazing song. But every song on here is great. Besides maybe Mother. It's kind of a weird one, but just fantastic, legendary album. Great musicians, great songwriting. Yeah, Love it. Okay, Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder's Journey Through the Secret Life of Plants. Another one I found at the thrift store for like $3. And I have no idea what this is like. I've heard it's more kind of a little bit more experimental and electronic than the few albums that came before it. But I mean, I love stuff like Talking Book, Fulfilling This First. What is that one called? I don't know. I can't remember. Songs in the Key of Life, Inner Visions. Man, amazing albums. So yeah, if I find a 70s Stevie Wonder album for $3, I'm gonna pick it up. And I'm intrigued. It's a double album. It was a soundtrack for a film, so I don't know. Sounds interesting. Okay, some more. I think this is 80s. Yeah, 89, I think. Tears for Fears, The Seeds of Love. I haven't listened to very much Tears for Fears either, to be honest, but what I have heard is great. I mean, their hits from the 80s are all, I don't know, they still hold up to this day, to be honest. And I've heard this one is great. I remember Steven Wilson, I think, talking about it. The production, how dense and layered it is, and I think it's one of his favorite albums of all time. So yeah, again, $3. I'm not gonna not pick it up. So getting a pretty big stack of stuff that I need to still listen to. Is that a thing that everybody has? What do you guys? What's your guys' experience with that? Do you own a bunch of stuff that you haven't even heard yet? Because I do, which is kind of weird. But oh well, I'll listen to all of it eventually. So okay, next up, Van Morrison, Moondance. Another guy that was kind of mostly a one-hit wonder with Brown Eyed Girl off his first album. Good song, but never was really enough for me to want to really check out his other stuff. But once I started like doing a bit of research, I realized that his early albums are generally pretty highly regarded. I can't remember if I've heard this one. I feel like I may have once. I know I've heard Astral Weeks, which is pretty good. This one is one of his higher rated ones. Yeah, just like kind of 70s folk rock sort of stuff. Yeah, I don't think I have heard this actually. So yeah, I don't know. Again, it was cheap. And finally, Tommy by The Who. Legendary. I own this on album vinyl too, but I mean it's Tommy. It's The Who. I'm gonna pick it up for $3. Great album, legendary, groundbreaking for the time, double concept album. Not my favorite from them. I would say Who's Next or Quadrophenia would be my favorites, but this is still great. Probably number 3 in my favorite Who albums. Still great album. Again, don't need to really say much about that. It's legendary. Okay, now to the box sets. Start off with Joni Mitchell. The studio albums 1968 to 1979. I haven't heard anything beyond these albums. I actually haven't heard this one yet, Mingus. But man, such an influential and revolutionary artist. Amazing songwriter, fantastic underrated guitarist. And yeah, her these albums, I think there's, what, 10 in here? Yeah, 10 albums. I've heard 9 of them. I absolutely love the first 8, I would say. The 9th one is pretty good, and I haven't heard the 10th, but super glad to have this. It's a pretty nice box set, too. Why I decided to save the box sets for last is kind of do a little bit of a comparison, because not all box sets, I guess they're in a box. That means it's a box set, right? But they're not all created equal. So this is one of the better ones. You get these little mini LP sleeves, like this. But these ones are actually gatefolds. So they open up like this. You get, it's basically like the LP would have been back in the day. So yeah, that's, I do like that. Some of these I think have inserts as well. Can't remember which ones, but some of them have a little lyric insert that fits in here too. So yeah, yeah, super glad to have these. Again, those first 8 albums are just fantastic. She started out really folky and then got more jazzy as she went on, and kind of almost experimental in places. A couple of the mid-70s albums, like Hejira, have Jaco Pastorius on bass, which is pretty freaking cool. Yeah, so super glad to have that. And it was like 50 or $60 for 10 albums. So I mean, that's a pretty killer deal in my opinion. Okay, sticking with some of my favorite female artists of all time. This one was more expensive, but still worth it. Kate Bush, Remastered Part 1. I love Kate Bush. Maybe my favorite female musician of all time, possibly. This is a super nice, if you want to do a CD box set right, this is how you do it. I mean, you get this nice, cool looking box. There's all the albums inside. And these ones are even, you can tell, I mean, here, I'll just compare this a little bit. These are gatefolds, the Joni Mitchell ones, but like you can tell from the thickness there. These are like twice as thick. And I mean, just really nice packaging. They're in digipacks, so they have the actual like plastic disc card there. And each one comes with a lyric insert too, like a full booklet. They're all remastered as well. I haven't spun any of these yet, but I'm expecting they sound great. But yeah, if you haven't heard Kate Bush, I know, I don't know. I did not like her voice at first, but once I got used to it, man, she just so unique. She just was completely fearless especially in the 80s. I mean, she was doing things that no one else was doing. Experimenting with all kinds of different sounds. She was not prog rock, but she was truly progressive in the real sense of the word, as in like expanding the boundaries of what is possible. Because a lot of the stuff on these albums is stuff that no one had really done before, and it still holds up to this day. Especially these 3 albums, Never Forever, The Dreaming, and Hounds of Love. Some of my favorite albums of all time, to be completely honest. Yeah, just fantastic stuff. And this was kind of pricey, this box set, but I had to have it. Had to have it. Okay, now on to the not so amazing box sets, but still cool to have. Robin Trower, the studio albums 1973 to 83. Again, you get 10 albums in this one as well. You can see them better on the front here. But, man, especially this first run of 5 albums, and the first 3 especially, Twice Removed from Yesterday, Bridge of Sighs, and For Earth Below. Amazing psychedelic blues rock, bits of hard rock. Man, Robin Trower's guitar tone is one of the best of all time. I forget what it's called. Man, I should have looked it up. I want to say Univibe, and a wah and lots of reverb. But yeah, these first 3 albums, this one especially, Bridge of Sighs, is just a total classic. If you somehow haven't heard Robin Trower, if you're into 70s psychedelic rock, hard rock, blues rock, fantastic stuff. Yeah, just amazing. These ones are just in these like single sleeve things, no kind of booklet or anything. So not the nicest box set around, but I mean, 10 albums for like $50. Hard to go wrong with that. And continuing in similar vein of box sets, Scott Walker. This is 5 classic albums. There's a lot of these sets out there. Again, this is just the single sleeves with no booklet or anything. Pretty cheaply made. And one thing that is kind of annoying is when you try to put these in here, the box wants to open from the other side, but oh well. Man, Scott Walker, what do you say about him? Kind of a legend, but never got a whole ton of recognition. Started off in like a kind of Baroque pop style, and his later stuff I haven't heard yet, but it's apparently really experimental and dark, kind of ambient stuff. I'm not totally sure, but man, these 2 albums, especially Scott 3 and Scott 4, man, just again, I'm having trouble describing the music with words, but it's still kind of Baroque pop, but a little bit experimental, and the songwriting is just amazing. Like, those 2 albums are just eternal classics. His voice, he's got that deep kind of baritone croon, but the songs are just so memorable and evocative and emotional. Man, just so good. And last but not least, Spirit. Their first 5 albums. Super cool US psychedelic rock band from the late 60s, early 70s. I haven't heard this 5th album, Feedback, but the first 4 are all great. They're kind of infamous because the estate of their deceased guitarist, Randy California, sued Led Zeppelin for plagiarizing one of their songs in Stairway to Heaven. It's got a similar chord progression. I forget how that went. I kind of think they lost the lawsuit. But, and it's kind of a weird situation. I mean, I don't think if Randy California was around, still, I don't think he would have sued them. But oh well. Just a fantastic band in their own right, regardless of that kind of controversy. The first 4 albums are fantastic, psychedelic rock, little bits of jazz, little bits of hard rock. If you want to check out one album from them, I would definitely say the one to get, or the one to listen to, would be 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus. Man, this is their masterpiece in my opinion. Every song on here is just great, catchy. There's again hard rock. There's little bits of prog and psychedelic stuff, and pop rock as well. It's kind of a concept album. Yeah, just amazing stuff. This is kind of weird. These come in these little like inner sleeves, which I'm not really sure what the point of that is, but oh well. So yeah, glad to have that one as well. It was cheap as well. It was, I want to say, $25 or something maybe. So there we go. Yeah, one of these days soon I will try to make a couple shorter videos on some different kind of topics or themes. Not sure when those will be out, but hopefully in the next few weeks or so. Yeah, anyway, for now, thanks for watching, and take it easy. Till next time, yeah, see ya.